Welcome to the Berry Tramel Show, and this week we've got a very special guest. Oklahoman Sam Pittman coaches the Arkansas Razorbacks. The Hogs will be in Stillwater on Saturday for a showdown against OSU. Historic game. This is an old rivalry that's been dormant for 44 years. It renews on Saturday. Sam, tell us about the excitement level of Arkansas playing Oklahoma State. The nearest major college football program to Fayetteville is in Stillwater.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that it's been that long, to be honest with you. 1979 was I graduated in 80, but 79 was my last high school football season, and I remember Arkansas played Tulsa, and they played Oklahoma State a lot back then, and it had become a pretty good rivalry, obviously because of distance, and the kids, were probably recruited by both universities, and so certainly are excited to get to Stillwater and have an opportunity to play Oklahoma State.
When you look at this matchup, Cowboys coming off a pretty good year. Arkansas coming off a pretty disappointing year, but it looks to me like the teams are fairly close in talent level. What's your take on this matchup?
Well, first of all, Oklahoma State's really well coached and have been for a long time, and play extremely hard, have a lot of talent, a lot of returners coming back. You're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to find ways to be patient and do a good job schematically. But watching them last week, very, very good football team, a lot of great skill. Certainly have at each level on defense, more than one, but some outstanding players on each level. The defensive line, linebacker, and then secondary. I just like 9. I think Rucker's a really, really good player, along with Martin and Oliver, but then they have more than that. But and then offensively, obviously they've got the big horse, running the football, and their quarterback is extremely efficient with what they ask him to do. And they went into portal and got I think an outstanding wide receiver transferred in from Washington State, and they already had some. And then, of course, the kid from Bigsby, they're going to get into football. Presley, he's been dynamic for a long, long time. Their special teams are very, very solid. Their kicker made a 52-yarder last week. So, and I know their home crowd, they're right on top of you. So it'll be just a really big challenge for us. But we're excited about it.
Sam, let's talk a little bit about your Oklahoma ties. Of course, you were born in El Reno, raised a good chunk of your childhood in Canton, moved to Grove. Your dad got a coaching job in Grove, and that's where you graduated high school. Most Oklahomans have spent some time in Grove, been on Grand Lake. A lot of people don't know where Canton is in northwest Oklahoma. I actually do. In 1956, my dad coached basketball at Longdale.
He was over at Longdale?
8 miles north of Canton.
So
on my wall, in my office, there's a picture of the 1956 Longdale basketball team with my dad coaching it. So,
when I was at Canton, Longdale went to, I'm going to say 8th grade. And then they merged over, and the kids came from Longdale over to Canton. I actually was at Watonga, Gary, Canton. So I'd go to the Blaine County track meet. I knew every kid at the track meet, And then my 10th grade year, we went spring break, Barry, we went to Grove. My dad, the superintendent, Jim Bradford at Canton, had took the superintendent job at Grove. And so my dad said, hey, let's go for spring break. You go to class and do, whatever. Their spring break isn't spring break. So go to class and meet some of the kids. I didn't know what he meant, but basically I think my dad knew he had a job at Grove and he wanted me to go over there. I didn't have a say-so in whether we was going to move over there or not. But my dad my dad back then recruiting was different. I wasn't a very good player, but was good enough to play at some college level. And so my dad moved us over to Grove, and I think a big chunk of that was so I might have an opportunity to get recruited and get my college paid for, which I did at Pittsburgh State. But the lake, Canton has a lake, as you well know, and so I was raised on a lake there, and then Grove having a lake was a lot of fun. And now Jamie and I have a retirement home in Hot Springs on Lake Hamilton. So kind of has gone that way throughout my whole life. Love to fish and love to get out there on a boat. So, but the experience growing up in Oklahoma, when I was in Central Oklahoma, I was a big Oklahoma Sooner fan, as a lot of folks are. Moving over to Eastern Oklahoma became either Oklahoma State or Arkansas. And I had come to a camp between my senior year at the University of Arkansas. I fell in love in Arkansas. They didn't know who I was then. Lou Holtz didn't, and he still doesn't, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't have recruited me either. But I came over, I fell in love with the Hogs. I had an uncle and an aunt that lived in Dover, Arkansas, that had great passion for the Hogs, and I, for whatever reason, it fit me. Wanted to be a part of the program. Was not a good enough player to do it, but I always had a love for the Hogs.
Well, you embark on a coaching career that takes you a lot of places, including OU, but you landed Arkansas, I don't know, a decade or so ago, and a little longer than a decade.
Yeah.
And then you get hired away by Kirby Smart.
Mm-hmm.
And when Arkansas needs a head coach, they come calling back. I've always been impressed with assistant coaches who leave a place for another job and the original school wants them back as head coach. What was it about your connection with the Razorbacks when you were an assistant that you became really connected with them and they wanted to stay connected with you?
Well, I think, a lot of times we're on the first train smoking, as an assistant. The portal's been in existence for coaches for a long, long time. When I first got here, I was here about 4 weeks as offense. I'd come from Tennessee, and I was here about 4 to 6 weeks, and I'd gotten offered the offensive line coach at Alabama. And my mother said, "Have you had a meeting with those kids?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You talk about loyalty?" "Yes, ma'am." "You talk about trust?" "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, then I didn't raise a kid that would be somewhere for 4 weeks and leave." And so that was kind of the end of that conversation. I think that meant something to the state of Arkansas. It got out that I'd been offered the job, and I got offered the O-line coaching job at the Buffalo Bills. My buddy Rex Ryan, who's an Oklahoma kid as well, had offered me that job, and decided the timing wasn't good, and I stayed there. So I think part of the loyalty, part of that, me being, and Jamie and I had bought a place in Hot Springs, so we were going to retire here after our Georgia days. So I think all that had something to do with it, and then I think everybody here knew I had a strong passion for the state of Arkansas, the people, and the university, and a few guys had to turn the job down too, but it all worked out well for me.
One thing you've been known for throughout your career is a great recruiter, which sometimes that goes along with offensive line coaching, sometimes not.
Right.
What is it that makes you, do you think, why have you been able to establish yourself as a really good recruiter?
Well, I think recruiting's hard work. You have to be willing to, I always wanted to lay my head down at night going, I've done everything I need to do. I always wanted to be the best assistant in every phase that the head coach hired. I wanted to be good in recruiting. I want to be a good coach. I want to be loyal to him. Part of being a good coach is you better have good players. And so I knew if I wanted to be known as a good position coach, I needed to go get the players. And I was a note writer. I still do now. I write notes in the texting and era of and the X, I guess they call it now, and I still write handwritten notes. I'd sit down and write 25 every morning and write to mamas and daddies, and it was just work. And obviously, the logo that you're recruiting to, it matters as well. It matters who you can get and who you possibly can't. But I think it's just being yourself, understanding who's the decision maker. It's changed a little bit now, Barry, obviously, with the finances involved in recruiting. You can do a great job. And we have to understand that as head coaches with our assistant coaches, too. They can do a great job and they can work hard. But if the dollar amount is significantly different than somebody else's dollar amount, you're going to lose the kid. So it has changed a little bit, and it's changed a little bit for me as a head coach, too, because of money being involved.
The Arkansas job that you have has changed over the years. All jobs sort of change throughout time, but whether it's changing conference, changing opponents, it looks to me like the Razorbacks job has gotten both perhaps easier and perhaps harder. But the easy part I see is in this NIL era. You're basically a one school state when you're talking about the power conference. Everybody's pulling together. Got a lot of prominent boosters and companies that want to see the Razorbacks do well. That plays right into NIL. On the other hand, the dang league adds Oklahoma and Texas and just makes it harder on everybody. Where do you see this Arkansas job and how it fits in trying to climb that SEC ladder?
Well, I certainly think the University of Arkansas should be able to compete in the SEC. History says it's been difficult. When we were in the Southwest Conference, we had quite a bit more success than what we've had over the last, I don't know what it is now, maybe 30 years or so since we've been in the SEC, maybe more. But at the same time, you take an Arkansas job because of that. You want that. Our state has not over time, and it's a lot like Oklahoma too. It doesn't produce because of population the number of kids that the Texas schools do, and the bigger states, the more populated areas, Georgia. So that makes it a little bit more difficult as well, because you don't have those guys that have grown up as many that love the Hogs. Now the ones that do, they love the Hogs, but there's just not as many. So that has been a little bit more difficult in recruiting, even though we're the only ones out there in the Power Five conference. But I agree with you. Adding Oklahoma and Texas could give you a little bit of juice in recruiting. You're going to play these guys every year, along with LSU and Alabama and all these teams. And at the same time, it makes your schedule much more difficult, and you have to figure out who you're going to play non-conference. And then you look around, you're going to Oklahoma State, a top 15 program in the country, along with all the other teams you're playing in the SEC. Very, very difficult, but that's why we got in this conference.
Sam, in the offseason, you did something that a lot of coaches wouldn't do. To me, it was a sign of a coach very comfortable in his own skin, but you brought back as offensive coordinator a former Arkansas head coach who had been very successful, Bobby Petrino. What led to that decision? How has it gone? And was that a difficult decision?
It wasn't difficult for me after I talked to him and after I talked to people that knew him. It wasn't at all. I just want to win, Barry, and I felt like Bobby would give us the best opportunity to win. Who gets credit and all that means, to be honest with you, nothing to me. We're doing this for the kids and for the state, and we want to have a good football team. I felt like Bobby Petrino was the best hire that I possibly could make. If I knew he was available before, I probably would have went after him before. But over the last 20 years, I think we've had 9+ winning seasons 3 times. Three different people have done that. Obviously Houston Nutt, myself, and Bobby, and having 2 of those 3 in the same building. And I knew Bobby loved Arkansas. I think I think we can make a good run at it, and that's the reason I hired him, because I felt like he was really, really good at what he does. And as I've found out, he's such a helper in a lot of different areas, but he's a good man. He's loyal as hell to me, and the credit, I know he's going to get some. But let me say this: whomever the offensive coordinator is, if you're doing well, he's going to get credit, and you're happy that he does, and hopefully he can move on and get a head coaching job. And I don't know what Bobby's, he's older, he's my age, so he may just want to be here and do well for the state. But ego people think about themselves, and ones that don't think about others. And hopefully I don't have that ego. I just want to win for the state and win for the kids. And so that's why I hired him.
Well, Sam, you've had a great couple of years in 21 and 22. 23 was a rough year. You go 4-8, you lose. I wrote it down. You lose by 7 to BYU, by 3 at LSU, by 7 to Ole Miss, by 3 at Alabama, and by 4 to Mississippi State. Yeah. How close were you last year to being a really good team? And is that really what you've got this year? Do you have the foundation of a good team?
We do. We have a good football team. We did well in the portal. We had to, you exchanging players nowadays, whether that be they go on the portal or whether that graduation. We found the guys that fit us. So I feel really good about that. We went on I believe maybe 5 out of 6 weeks in a row where we were on the road, and we were losing, at Alabama by 3, at LSU. We were tied. They drove down. We had the ball down 3 at Alabama and couldn't score. We were ahead of Ole Miss in the 4th at Ole Miss, and we just lost all of them, and very, very difficult. Now, we did go to Florida towards the end of the year and won in overtime, and that certainly was a good game for us. But yes, records sometimes don't indicate what kind of football team you have. And I felt the disappointing thing, to be honest with you, Barry, about last year was the way that we finished. I mean, you can live with, you don't want to, you got to figure out how to win the close game, which we lost several of those. But the disappointing thing was 2 out of 3, the Auburn game and the Missouri game, 2 of our last 3 games where we just didn't, we got our ass kicked, and it was just disappointing that we didn't play well and play harder, and all that starts with me, and so we had to figure that out. But this year here, I really like the feel of our team. I think we are like a little bit like Oklahoma State. I think we have the right people in the right skill positions, and we're good at 3 levels on defense as well. And I think it's going to be a hell of a game on Saturday.
Well, Sam, I sure appreciate the time. Good luck in Boone-Pickens Stadium. And from all Oklahomans, thanks for bringing the Razorbacks over here. This is a series that should have been renewed a long time ago.
I agree with you. Listen, you've been good to me for a long time, and you're great at your job. And when they asked me if I'd be interested to talk to you, I said, Berry Tramel, hell yeah, I'd be interested to talk to him. I have a great respect for you, and I have for a long time. Thank you much for your time.
Well, thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. We will see you later.
Okay.